Welcome back. At the moment, members of our Parliament are in the UK. They say they're there to study how the British Parliament conducts oversight as part of a plan to improve oversight of the presidency. You may remember the Zondo Commission saying there needed to be more oversight by Parliament. At the moment, the presidency, the only department in government that doesn't actually have an oversight committee in Parliament. Musa Mdunge is a political analyst based at the University of Dundee in the UK. Musa, good afternoon to you. What lessons do you think our MPs are going to learn about oversight in Britain, Musa?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and to your viewers. So, the United Kingdom has quite a very robust, tradition of accountability over the executive. And in part, it is because of the political system that the United Kingdom has. Remember that members of the executive, members of the cabinet, are also members of parliament, including the Prime Minister, who is the head of government. In fact, the Prime Minister, he sits in front of what we call the liaison committee twice a year, and this has happened since 2002. And it is a very key committee because it is the one moment in the year where members of Parliament in the House of Commons are able to express questions, concerns with the Prime Minister on key issues of the day and key work that the government is undertaking. And of course, the liaison committee became very important during the time of Boris Johnson. We know that at the time when a lot of members of his executive were resigning, he was in fact in front of that particular committee. So in the case of South Africa, I think it offers a key lessons, key opportunities to strengthen the hand of accountability and oversight as must be exercised by Parliament in terms of its constitutional responsibility. We know that Section 55 of the Constitution calls on Parliament to exercise accountability and oversight over all organs of state. And it's very key that system of accountability be strengthened, even as it concerns the president, whom many have accused of somewhat creating a super presidency in the past, 6 years or 5 years rather, of him being in power. So it's a very key thing, and hopefully, they will come up with lessons on how to ensure greater accountability moving forward.
Musa, it's interesting because I think the idea from the Zondo Commission, and I think many people accept this idea, and I do to an extent, that oversight by Parliament would reduce corruption, reduce abuse of power. But the fact is that Britain had all of these systems, and it also had a man, we sometimes forget him, he had a bit more hair than I do, called Boris Johnson, and he still got away with a lot of nonsense. Did the British system really work when it came to Johnson?
Well, look, it may have not led to him not being corrupt necessarily, but what we did particularly see was that level of accountability that in the end really saw his support among particularly the Conservative Party backbenchers really fall apart. And unfortunately, the problem with parliamentary systems such as the one we have and the one that is here in the United Kingdom is you're almost at the mercy of the political parties. And that is why it's been key, as found in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry report, that there's an importance in changing the electoral system, in ensuring that our political system is such that members of Parliament, uphold their constitutional mandate over their allegiance to party. And we need to see a strengthening of that. And so a committee such as one envisioned that will keep the president accountable is very key, because in committees, it is where, in fact, we see a greater level of collaboration among different parties that you won't necessarily see when you now go into a plenary session in the National Assembly, because there, of course, you are playing to the gallery, you are playing to the public, and there's a lot of politicking that may happen. But it is a very key thing because it allows us, it ensures that the people have access to their leaders. And Parliament is that institution that ensures essentially that what you have is a government of the people and by the people. And without Parliament playing that oversight function, things will truly fall apart. Unfortunately, as part of the compromise of 1994, what South Africa compromised then was the balance between accountability and representation. Because of the way in which we elect members of parliament. If indeed members of parliament were directly elected by you and I and not chosen from a party list system, it would strengthen the pressure of accountability as it pertains to the constitutional function of parliament. And so there are questions, in fact, that then arise about the type of political system we have, how we elect leaders, how we view accountability, and how do we ensure that we have checks and balances. The fact is, we have a minister in the presidency in charge of dealing with the electricity crisis who is not being kept accountable by Parliament. And that is a dangerous thing, considering where the country faces itself with the kind of challenges that it has.
I do wonder, do you have to go to the UK to learn these lessons? Could some of the MPs who are currently there have learned these lessons from here? And I realise that's quite a cynical question.
There was no need for that at all. I mean, the research and the work is extensive on parliamentary democracies, on oversight, the functioning of parliament. There really was no need. Look at you and I right now. We're speaking via Zoom. Surely there was no need for such a travel. And so one calls, to question, given where the country is financially, whether this was prudent. Though one sees the importance of such, but given the financial constraints on the fiscus, one could question whether this route needed to be taken. And moreover, Stephen, during the negotiations, we know the extensive work that was done in terms of how it is that we would design the parliamentary system in South Africa post-1994. And so there still remains an extensive work, and there are people within South Africa who would be experts able to help the South African government and parliament, in fact, in terms of strengthening its oversight mechanisms when it comes to holding the executive accountable. So indeed, I do share your concern to say from a financial perspective, was it really prudent and needed? And were there not other ways in which, if this information was needed, it could be gathered? And this speaks to the fact that we really need leaders who are very innovative and who think on their feet. And we're in a stage of technology. Why is this thing not being used?
Musa Mdunge, thank you very much indeed. Political analyst at the University of Dundee in the UK. Really do appreciate the time.